Greeting, dark horses. Welcome back. We're doing a new podcast. This one should be an interesting one. It's a big subject in jiu-jitsu that is widely underreported, under-talked about. One of those things where you find yourself in trouble and you don't quite know what happened. What are we talking about, Professor?
Yeah, I get the question all the time. How do I start? I don't know where to start.
Slap hands.
Boom.
And then
folks need a better idea.
So that's what we're going to go over. Openings in jiu-jitsu. This is going to be mostly focused in the room. What do you do after you slap hands, right? And this isn't going to be so much positional training, like if you're starting off in mount or close guard or whatever, but more an open roll. Slap hands. Either person can stand up, stay on their knees. Either person can fight from the butt, aka pull guard. And how to create advantages for yourself from either position. If you're on bottom and you're a guard player, we'll go over ways to get to close guard, half guard, open guard. If you're on top, we'll go over a couple ways to create advantages for yourself, including some different passes and kind of the space in between the two and why that's so important, why it's so easy to overlook and often overlooked, even in training, even with some upper belts sometimes.
Yeah. And I think we were discussing earlier, how we didn't really dig into openings as an area of study until much later.
It wasn't presented as such. It was a thing that happened all the time, and maybe someone would show you a thing or two that you could do from there, but it wasn't presented as its own subject worthy of study. And you shouldn't spend too much time on it. Obviously, it's of limited or no utility in a tournament or in a self-defense situation.
Sure,
this is just in the room. However, it is of some import, and it's worth going over.
Yeah, you can't just yada it out.
Yeah,
right.
Then you yada your way into getting your butt kicked over and over again.
Sure,
how's that going?
Sure, and I think there's big advantages in having like a good plan to begin with, and that'll get you to a position from which you can practice all your things. Right? Like maybe your opening gets you to side control every single time, and you can start working your.
What's the military quote? No plan survives first contact with the enemy.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not your enemy, but things are going to get weird, and you just have to deal with it, and that's a huge part of jiu-jitsu. However, we can give you a game plan at the start, something you can do over and over again. At the very least, even if it doesn't work every time, you'll at least start to build a pattern of responses that you see over and over again, which will lead to, like 2 or 3 things that you do off of that over and over again, and will lead to a lot more successes really, really quickly.
Yeah, and I think you hit a big kind of hidden nugget there in just having consistent responses. I think it's really natural for folks when they're just starting out or even fairly deep into their jiu-jitsu experience, they'll try something different every time.
If you're making it up every time, you're going to make up something different often, a lot, too much.
And so you're going to see different responses.
Well, that didn't work. I got to try something else. Well, not necessarily.
Right? Yeah. If you build a different scenario every time, you have to respond to it different every time.
Right.
And then you don't get your repetitions.
You're not making a lot of progress. You're floundering in the dark.
It just occurred to me that sanding is a repetitive thing.
Who's sanding?
Not Sandy, sweetheart. Sanding, like if we were sanding wood.
Smoothing out a surface?
Exactly, right? It's repetition, and things get smooth.
Like water over a river stone?
There you go.
Yeah.
Right? So if we just do the same thing over and over again, all of a sudden it gets smooth, and then
you will get good at it.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to it's important to be doing the right thing over and over again, not less than ideal thing. I'm not going to say the wrong thing, but a less productive thing, a thing with less utility. A good technique.
Yes.
We'll go over a whole bunch of good techniques. We'll go over some good concepts as well.
Right. Because practice makes permanent, not perfect. perfect practice makes perfect permanent. But,
Coach Brittany's really fond of practice makes progress.
okay, yeah, I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's very common though for people to practice bad habits. That's why I said practice makes permanent, right? If you practice a bad habit, guess
Yeah.
what? It's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So into building up some good habits, should we start on the top or the bottom?
What if we started on the space between?
Okay.
And we're going to look at that, and then, yeah, we're going to start on top, bottom, knees versus standing.
Yeah.
There's a whole debate there, and they both have their utility. So,
Well, and even standing itself is a great opening move.
Yeah.
Right? If we're starting,
boom.
I'm at a big advantage. Right? All of a sudden, I'm way more mobile than Professor's flat butt cheeks. So,
And already we've kind of skipped over the space in between, right? There isn't that much space in between. Stay there for me, Professor. Already there isn't that much space in between. In boxing, they call it the pocket. And being in the pocket is where I can reach his chin and he can reach mine. And like literally, we're in the boxing pocket, even though this is not a standard boxing position, obviously. But I can reach his collar, I can reach his leg, I can reach his sleeve, and he can do the same with me. So most rolls aren't going to start here, and they shouldn't start here. And the space in between is what I was talking about. So he stood up, which gives him a pretty solid advantage in mobility, right? So what he wants to do is close the distance at a time when it's most strategically advantageous to him, right? But it's not a one-way street, right? I'm not just stuck here. I am right now because I'm sitting cross-legged, more or less. But I don't have to be, right? If I put one hand on the mat and one foot on the mat, I can move around a fair amount, right? So if he steps in and I don't like it, right? I can control distance and move back and create that distance again so I can get a restart. And the opposite is also true, right? If I get a collar grip, I can throw my legs in really quickly, closing that distance, right? And that's what I want on bottom, is to close the distance when it's most advantageous to me. Obviously. And then on top, what he's looking at is creating angles.
absolutely. So you're talking about closing that distance. If we choose to stand, the last thing I want to do is just walk in square and let him do what he's going to do. So yeah, taking advantage of that space and mobility. So if your opening move is stand up, right, let's start looking at your pass, right? Because that's the first thing you're going to deal with. So angle, like Professor was saying, that's kind of our big one. So if I've got that advanced mobility, I'm going to go outside of Professor's headlights, right? So essentially where his knees are pointing is his range of motion.
My knees, I like that, yeah.
Yeah, so regardless of what kind of guard formation he has or where he's messing around, his knees are pointing at his limits. So moving outside of those headlights is going to have a great big advantage, because all of a sudden I'm not passing both legs, I'm not passing arms, I've just cut his defenses in half. And depending on how you like to pass, right, come in, maybe I'm going to pass to this side and take advantage of most people's weakness, right? They're left. So just moving away from all the sticky, hooky, nasty traps in there.
The concept that Professor brought up was don't attack a fortified position. And it isn't necessarily fortified, but if you just walk straight in, you're walking into all of the things that I'm going to use to try and beat you, right? My hands and my feet, I'm looking in that direction, right? And just stepping to this side here, all of a sudden, like these two limbs are more or less irrelevant at this moment, right? I can try to get them back in. And these two are halfway irrelevant, right? I can only reach this half of his body without doing anything. And that advantage is admittedly super temporary, right?
But it's kind of like the big advantage. Action is faster than reaction.
Yeah.
Even if I can get you behind by a fraction of a second, if you're behind, I think that's a huge concept in openings as well. Is initiative, making the first move, putting the action on your terms.
If you move and I move in reaction, then by definition, I'm on your path.
100%.
Not mine.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. So got that angle, and when he re-squares up, boom, there's my advantage. Or before he re-squares up.
Before.
Yeah. Come out, make him do his thing, and take advantage.
Yeah, what you want to do is solidify your position, or at least guard pass, before I fully replace back to square, right?
Right.
And ideally, solidify the position, like solidify side control in the belly. But worst case, solidify into a solid guard pass right off. So if you step to the side like that, I know Professor likes the knee slice. As I'm trying to square up, he just steps in, brings in the knee slice. Yet, as soon as I try to get these left limbs back in where I can apply against him, he's already locked him out of position. Right? So creating advantage on top by not closing the distance until you have a pretty solid advantage, pretty huge advantage there.
Yeah, and I think if you are on the right side of that, you are on the action side, you get to pick your targets, and you say, well, I want that one, that one, that one. Meanwhile, the reacting party, they don't get to pick their targets; they get what's right in front of them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if I come in without managing that distance in between, and I didn't pick any of my targets, I didn't take advantage of any of that. Whereas out, all of a sudden, my mobility and angle is gonna give me all kinds of those openings and advantages.
Yeah. It looked so silly when he did it, but I see some slight variation of that all the time in the academy, in multiple academies, in all academies, right? This is near universal. You got me. Oh wait, I have all four limbs applied against him, right? He is not effectively using his weight. He's created no angle. He's not in a guard pass.
It's terribly effective when golden retrievers do it.
Because they're so cute, you can't defend yourself against it.
Right, yeah, just charge right up the middle and boom.
Those dang emotional terrorists.
Emotional terrorists.
The worst.
Yeah, so there you go. Don't pass like a golden retriever, pass like a person.
You're not that cute. So the space in between, creating angles for the person on bottom, controlling distance for the person on top. First piece, right?
Yeah,
I think it was
absolutely.
the first thing to be aware of. And like, you have to internalize that awareness, right? You're going to be thinking a whole host of other things, but if you're not paying attention to this piece, you'll be behind the 8 ball right off the bat, right? Do you want to get more into passing on top, feet versus knees, specific guard pass?
Certainly can. So I really like the Superman pass, especially for beginners, and especially like right off the shake.
Absolutely.
That's just good stuff, and it applies a lot of the principles we're using right now.
You have to risk for reward, right? And we teach the headquarters position. The problem with headquarters is you're offering up your leg, right? You can kind of create an angle, but you're kind of coming in a bit more square, and you're offering up their leg to grab or whatever, possibly that arm too, right? With Superman pass is so good because you create an angle and an opening, and you're keeping your legs back, and you extend your arms away, right? So you're risking arms, but in such a way that it's so fast that it's really minimal chance for the person on bottom to counter.
Yeah. By the time usually they're able to react to that hand reaching in, you're already pinning the hip and or knee.
And moving outside the head, right?
Yeah. So I think that's a as an opening sequence, that whole thing is just really great. So yeah, so we come in, bang, and come out. Now I'm gonna break that distance. I don't want to go right into his trap right away. And here I'm gonna start cutting my angle. Cutting that angle gives me kind of two advantages here. Because he's not gonna bring the close side foot up. Right? That doesn't help him turn and follow me. So the foot that I'm going toward is always going to be towards the ground. It's almost always going to be towards the ground, just because he has to keep following me.
I want to face you.
Yeah, he wants
I don't want to turn my own back to you.
Yeah,
Right? I
yeah,
want to
they want to
face
face you. Right, so cutting that angle, and then when I'm ready, right now, like if Professor's hanging out here with his hand right in front of his hip, not good. Right? So maybe distract that hand a little bit.
Well, they're more likely going to be like here reaching.
Yeah, but take advantage of that angle. Reach, pin the knee to the floor. I essentially used my entire body length to cover that distance. So that'll take some getting used to, just some reps. But extend. Keeping heavy, cut the angle, drive the knee down, and push the hips away as I come up into good side control. So I've eliminated the legs from the equation, turned their back to me, kept my arms and legs pretty safe. I think Superman pass right off the shake is it.
Your legs were out of reach the whole time. Right?
Yeah. And I think you can even do that kind of as a drill by yourself. Right, just reaching and back. Right, so you know how long your distance is. Have a better idea of where you can
once
get
you're
in.
planning to get a little shuffle in there. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like it.
And then it combos into so many other things.
Do you want to go into those a little bit, a little something?
We got cut my angle, come in for Superman pass, and
Common defenses, stiff arm, bringing the knee under.
Yep. Let's see.
Trying to use this foot onto the hip.
Yeah.
Long-legged people. You do that a lot.
Yeah. A lot of times here, I'll just come back in and knee slice if they're fairly aggressive, whatever. Just cover that space and go for that knee slice.
Yeah.
Like that a lot.
I think the knee slice deals with the stiff arm and the foot on the hip, either or both, in one movement.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can't knee slice against the shield here. Oh, it's just going to be a little bit different with the knee slice.
Yeah. It's belly, or really just change your angle. Like that quite a bit. Bailing. Right? Bail, pull their foot up and move it away. Coming in and don't want to mess with the hands or whatever. You can hold that foot and start steering their hips away, even if you just need to break distance. Don't like it, get that out and I'll reset. I'll even let you face me again, do whatever. That's the concept we were talking about also. As bail and reset.
There's a huge idea in there that some people catch on to pretty quickly and some people do not. But just bailing on a guard pass, bailing on a guard, bailing on a whatever. If it's not going right, and you know it, bail out, right? Reset is often, surprisingly often, an option, and sometimes the best option, sometimes the only option. But continuing down the path where you can feel it going wrong, you know it's going wrong, you don't have technical counters, just don't do it, right? Okay. Bail out, do something else, start over. Good example of that. Do that Superman pass. Right, he gets his grips, Maybe I get my knee in, maybe I'm starting to grips here, maybe I'm bringing this foot in, right? And really all he has to do is the same thing he was doing before, right? Grabs the ankle, right? Yeah, and he starts to change the angle, right? If I try to keep these, that's not going to help. The shield didn't help. But if he continues what he's doing here, right? He continues to circle around. I get the foot on the hip. I have these grips, right? I can move into sleeping collar, spider guard, whatever, right? And things just get worse. An example of a bailout. Eject button.
I see that with triangle all the time. Right? People get in the triangle, they're able to posture up early, but not able to keep passing or anything. They'll posture up and break out the triangle, just shove backwards, reset, break distance to that guard, and go back into passing.
Yeah. From on top, creating a distance, closing distance when you want. When you create an angle and you set up your guard pass, be careful what you risk, right? Don't offer up too much so they can use against you without being aware of the risk. Like Superman pass, your hands, you can put one on the hip, one on the knee, but you've already created an angle where there's precious little that they can do against it.
Yeah. I think you hit another hidden nugget.
What did I do this time?
God, now my brain went. What were we just talking about?
Creating an angle, closing the distance, risk, being aware of what you're risking.
Yes. That's huge. Yes. 40% of all the techniques we teach, or 40% of each technique that we teach is about protecting yourself in that position, keeping yourself safe, minimizing your risk. I think of we teach guard passes and insist on little habits that don't seem like anything until somebody's trying to armbar you, until somebody's trying to until you're constantly under attack, and then all of a sudden, elbow to hip has to happen. I think minimizing risk is a huge part of.
Keep your elbows locked to your ribs on the bottom of the mount. Why? Why is that such a big deal? Well,
don't do it. Find out.
Yeah, please. I'll enjoy it.
Yeah, that's a big piece. So if we are managing distance well from the top, we're able to set up our own more or less happy circumstance. We're able to cut that angle. We bail if we need to. What else can we do on top that gives us advantages in the first 15 seconds of a roll?
We talked about it briefly, but this is more long term. Learn to pass to both sides. If they're always overcorrecting to the guard person's right, they're opening up their left side. And you don't have to have a whole, if you can pass both sides equally, then that creates a huge advantage. But even if you have one pass their offside, just to keep them honest, that can be huge. So kind of looking at that cross-step pass / arm bar is what I use. I don't really pass to my right, their left a lot. You can sit up for me. Yeah, but as I'm moving this way, if he just squares up, right in that moment, as he squared up, right, I was still, right, so I can move in the opposite direction as he's moving that way, right, which is an advantage for me, right? I have an advantage now, and as he's moving, I have an advantage now, right, as he's moving. So I grab the sleeve, I try to grab the collar, and I cross-step into the hip, right, and I can sling him down, I can go to an arm bar, I can go to knee on belly, I can go to mount, side control, whatever you're comfortable with. But I do it in that space of time, right? So if I keep going this way and he's really overcorrecting, then I know I'm going to go back the other way, right? So boom, I grab the sleeve, cross step, try to grab the collar and or push him down. Really, if you want to set that lesson hard, you hit that arm bar, right? Stepping over his head, pinching the knees, controlling the wrist, finish the arm bar. And next time, or perhaps a couple doses of the medicine, and they're really leery about following hard, right? that, yeah, it becomes a lot more cautious, right? Which means that I have that angle that I wanted, that we've been talking about. And he doesn't want to close it up too fast because he knows I'll take advantage of it to the backside.
Yeah, again, working off that action reaction, right? You're giving them the action, make them react, make them slow, make them react.
And that space and time, that moment it's a moment, you know, it's really short and it can pass you by. And here's why I think it takes so long to learn, right? What happens after that? Well, a million things. And if you're a white belt, probably you got choked out or submitted, whatever, at the end of it. It was all intense. What's the last thing you remember? The first thing that happened, right? When that first moment when things started to go right. That first moment where you create an advantage and then they countered faster and then a million other things happened afterwards, right? So these mistakes can be compounded and can go on for years and years and years because a million other things happened afterwards and that submission is way more intense, right? It sticks out in your brain way more. So this can just be overlooked and just kind of stuck there for a long time.
Well, certainly, especially if you've got other things you're drilling. You know, I'm working on my passing. So while you're rolling, you remember all your passes. Those are focused.
Guard pass, I know that,
Yeah.
sure.
And then you skip over a million other things, which I think there is, like you already touched on it a little bit, there is value in drilling this stuff. There's value in knowing technique that works specifically in the room. But it's not the whole story. Don't stop there.
Yeah, there's a small little tidbit, often overlooked.
Yeah.
Should we move to the bottom?
Yeah. Do you have any specific takedowns from the knees? From the not top, but not.
When I'm on top on the knees, or when I'm on bottom and they're on their knees, when I'm on bottom and they're on their feet?
Well, I think we could do one of each, shouldn't we?
So I was talking about we talked about this before we had the cameras rolling. Was kind of the thing that you like to do when they're on bottom, where you kind of head tie, grab the knee and spin them.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of do the same thing when you're on bottom if they present one knee up, one knee down, like this. Switch sides for me. It'd be better for the camera. They've just given you an ankle pick, right? Their ankle's right there, their head's right there. If you lock the two together, you push them backwards, then you're in position to pass right off the bat, right? So ankle, head, kind of pinching them together, pulling and pushing him backwards, and he falls right over. And you get up and you're looking to pass, right? If you do the same thing, you can do it right back to you, all right? Boom,
Top,
boom.
ankle, put it together, pass. Drive to.
So is that a takedown from the bottom? Is that what you're talking about, or are you talking about something else?
So I usually do something very similar when they're on their knees. So starting from like the neutral roll position.
You want to show that up?
Yeah. So then I'll come in.
Oh, the bear fight?
Yeah.
Polar bear fight?
Here. Right? And so I like to train from this position because it's like 7/8 of jiu-jitsu minus a shin. And you don't hit the floor nearly as hard. You can
Minimizing impact, there's something to be said for that, for
Right.
sure. And I have a strong base up to a point, right? But they have these angles off to the side, right? Which aren't going to hurt my knee. Like if you drive me straight backwards, right?
Yeah.
That's not cool. But off to the side, either way, like maybe I could post with one hand. But I don't have a lot of base outside of that.
And then another big concept that I love to mess with and really like in openings is controlling the head, moving their head to move the rest of their body. So a lot of times I'll come in and mess with the head, and here I'm pulling his head off of his base, right? So I can manipulate the upper body a lot more. I'll block that outside knee and drive him over that angle, and then take my side control right there off the knees. And just eliminate that whole guard up nonsense right off the bat.
Boom. So that was what you talked about before, not here?
No, I mean if they're here, I like to
Okay.
pinch my
Yeah.
feet over their knees, but
Yeah.
they don't need their feet.
Is that a knee pick?
Yeah,
So
essentially.
let's call that a knee pick, like an ankle pick, but picking the knee.
Mhm.
You can't reach my ankle, but you don't need to.
No. But I mean, it's the exact same option. If they're here, you can pick the knee. If they're here, you pick the ankle.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, depending on how long your arms are.
Yeah. And when I was there, I felt strong. And then when you pulled me here, I was like, oh no, this isn't good.
Yeah.
And then like with a little counter pressure, pulling the head into the knee into the head, and you get kind of stuck. Right. It's like a deep squat. You're not going to generate the maximum amount of power that with your knees that close to your chest.
Right. Right. And then as the one pushing, you don't have to use your hand, right? It's not a small motion. You're using your whole forearm. You can put your shoulder behind it. Even if they're heavier than you, you're pushing with most of your body. So you can be fairly strong.
Almost everyone in Longmont stands passing. So that's what I've been chewing on a lot. So I wanted to go over, let's go over my favorite way to get to sleeve and collar. But you could also think of it as just like a generic open guard position that you can fill in with whatever other open guard you like. But how it's hard to stop, right? How it's really quick. I go from a neutral position to a position where I have a huge advantage in a really short amount of time, right? So if you would stand up for me, right? And if he's this close, like already he's a little too close because I'm not ready yet, right? So I back up. So I have my foot on the mat and my hand on the mat, kind of a stand and base position, so I can move forward and backward, right? And being comfortable moving in and out from this position is worth a little practice. And I'm looking for a collar. It really doesn't matter which one. I want a high collar grip, so at the collarbone or higher, right? Not a low collar grip. This is going to be a lot less useful in a second, right? So high collar grip, I push off with my hand and my foot, and I throw my left foot to his shoulder, kind of blocking his right arm out, and I throw my right foot to his hip, which matches with the, turn this way for me, please. Which match with the collar grip. I can break his posture. So I'm outside a distance, right? As soon as I get in, I grab the collar. As soon as I have the collar grip, I throw my feet at him here. So left foot on the shoulder to the bicep, right hand on the collar, right foot on the hip, and I can use this for a lot of things. But if he's immediately trying to posture up, I can go 2-on-1. I can put both feet on the hips if I need to, but I dominate the posture, right? If I wanted to go to spider guard, the sleeves here, right? If I wanted to go to De La Hiva guard, the legs here. If I wanted to go to sleeve and collar, right? I like to sit up on their left side, so I switch off hands on the collar and hands on the sleeve. I can break that sleeve grip, and here I am ready to rock and roll. So the piece that gets overlooked is that distance piece, right? I go over it, and then they do this, right? But I've already missed it, right? Here, I'm outside a distance. As soon as that distance is closed and I get that grip, I immediately throw left foot to the shoulder, right foot to the hip. I can go 2-on-1. I can go to a spider grip. I can go to De La Hiva. I can immediately switch off and start attacking their left arm. And I love doing that because they're not used to defending, right? Everyone's comfortable with a combat base, connecting the right elbow to the right knee. So if I sit up on this side, already he's kind of blocking my foot out. Already I can't attack his arm. I can't attack a triangle, right? Whereas if I sit up on this side, his instincts all aren't the same, right? I can immediately attack this arm. I can immediately attack the triangle. I can immediately attack a balloon sweep. And look at his stance. I'm pulling his left hand forward, and he's presenting his right foot. So his stance is awkward, kind of all on its own, right? So pulling and open guard versus a standing opponent. Make sure to control distance. As soon as you have that collar grip, throw all 4 limbs at them and gain contact, and then move into, I presented 3 or 4 options there, but move into a guard game, just like that.
Love it. Yeah, I'm not terribly certain if they come up, or if they just stay on the knees. I'll pull guard from a stand-up and base. I really like. But then coming out, right, like giving you just the one side to pass to, and kind of limiting your options, making you react. Keep that distance, and then stand up and base. Full guard. All right, go out and in gives you a lot of like surprise factor. You're not just sticking your foot in there and hoping they don't push it away.
He hit his right leg, so I didn't start fighting it, and then he brought it back and brought his right foot past me, so I couldn't fight it. Right. So right here, I'm very well might be tempted to grab that leg. Right. If I'm passing through knees, I might want to grab it, pin it, and start to pass. So he controls distance. Right. Yeah. He hides that leg. Yep. And he brings it back. Yeah.
One of my absolute favorite ways to get triangle too. So you give him a little pull, and yep, we're playing hot lava, and he touched the floor. So come in, yank, hips out, hips in.
Oh.
I like that pull. Yeah. If they stand up, one of my favorites is attaching shin to shin. You got a bunch of options. You're fairly safe. Yeah. Again, kind of blading out. Like, I give him the super obvious things that he can grab, right? But all this is pretty low risk for me, and I've got kind of a wall up in front of him. So I like to close that distance, find the inside of his foot, and scoop, connect. Once I'm in here, I've got a bunch of different options, right? This is your kind of the dark horse standard Anaconda Entrance. This sleeve can be super helpful, dropping them into that empty post. That's just a nice way to kind of get in close and
glom onto him, minimize my passing options, right? Everyone feels like you can knee slice, but you really can't. Mm-hmm. And like, there's no way I can Superman pass from there, right? And I have to deal with your shin to shin, right? How good is your shin to shin passing? That's what I thought.
Yeah. Lots of options.
Close guard. So going back to the open guard pull versus standing, you can go to close guard there, right? So let's look at that. I think that's what's going over. We want people to have an efficient and effective close guard. So as soon as I grab the collar, this is going to be a little bit more of a two-step, right? Push off, closing the distance. Put the shoulder in the hip. I go 2-on-1, but I take that shoulder off the hip, miss the wires, right? And I pull him. If he falls forward, that's great, but I can pull myself to him as well, right? And pull close guard, and you can immediately start to work whatever attacks you like. If he stays on his feet, you can go to the back sweep, right? If his arms are out, you can attack the arm. You can get to close guard and start playing a close guard game versus a standing opponent, which can be a little stymieing at first.
One of the things I really like if I'm trying to play really any open guard, closed guard, whatever, and they're reaching down, I think, okay, great. That's not them breaking my guard. That's not them pushing my legs. That's them telling me where their hands are.
Yeah.
So I can grab those hands, do bad things to them.
Yeah.
Anytime they're pushing down into your guard to like re-counter, take those sleeves away.
Shin. Half guard is easy to pull, kind of those same concepts, especially if they're on the knees, right? But I don't want to just do this because the same Superman pass, right, is right here or whatever pass, right? So I want to control distance, grab the collar, throw this foot in, hooking his leg, and right into whatever half guard you want to do. Like I threw the shield in because it might be good to be a little defensive at first if you're not really adept at half guard. But here you can get into it right off the bat, right? Standing's a little different. You can get to half guard, but they're standing up, right? So it's weird. If you like playing deep half, then you can do that off of a standing opponent pretty easily.
Shin to shin to deep half is
yeah,
a lovely whole thing, but it's going to take a lot of practice.
What else?
Depending on how like genki you are.
Like Genki Pseudo Genki, or is this a different Genki we're talking about?
This is watashi wa genki desu. Like fired up.
Oh.
So I like to, if I'm feeling like energetic, yeah, come in with their butterfly here, hinge and drive. Right, doing exactly the opposite of what we just said. I'm gonna go absolutely square in, but sit down into their butterfly here.
With a purpose.
Yeah, tuck my head to one side and hop. All right, clear those legs right off the bat. And if you do it quick, you're more likely to surprise them. Right? If you push into the butterfly and then hang out, probably not great. But depending on how expeditiously you move into that.
Well, let's look at some of the advantages he created for himself there. So he moved in, right? He pinched my feet so they're locked together. And what is he controlling here, right? He's controlling the inside position, right? With his arm, with his other arm, with his whole body, right? He's controlling the center, right? My knees are forced outside. My hands are forced outside. My feet are inside, right? But that's it, right? So he's solidified control of the inside position. So he came straight in, but he immediately created a lot of advantages for himself. And his weight isn't really down on me per se, but anything I want to do to attack him, I'm probably going to have to move his body weight, which is hard, right? Because my feet are forced up against my butt, right? Which is not where I want to generate power with my feet. I to the side and immediately jumps over that whole guard thing, all right? Boom.
Yeah,
So-
I would really insist on their heels being into their butt. Yeah.
Strategically sound, even if it does counter some of the earlier things we talked about to create advantages, right? You created a whole list of other advantages. So there's like, for big guys, this is probably something that'll be more advantageous more quickly, right?
Sure.
For small people, sticking more to that first set of stuff we were talking about. But big guys, they want to control the inside and they want to get their weight down on it, right? So you can move into a smash pass from there. You can move into a grima pass. You can move into knee slice pass from there pretty easily. A whole lot of pressure passing going on. If that initial jump over doesn't work, or if you just want a pressure pass.
Yeah. And most of the time, the jump over isn't going to work, right? Like I said, it's mostly if you surprise them, right? But the fact that you're surprising them is very helpful. It works a lot.
The creating a pattern, right? If you try to do the same thing over and over again, it becomes infinitely predictable, right? So the bad side of practicing building up a pattern that you can see, you get used to countering is same thing's happening on the other side, right? You're doing that same thing. They get used to countering it or trying to counter it or whatever, but they see it over and over again. So it's predictable. So having a thing that isn't as predictable kind of opens it up, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a big pattern just in all jiu-jitsu schools across the world where you're getting good at jiu-jitsu, but you are also getting good at your common training partners. Like you're learning the patterns and the mechanics and the moves of jiu-jitsu in general, but you're also learning, oh, Professor Andrew likes this thing, and Eric likes this thing, and so even if you're not consciously paying attention to it, you are learning your common training partner's patterns. So it can be a good thing to vary those up a little bit.
Yeah, and there's utility in that, right? But only to a certain point.
Yeah.
Right? You want to stay more focused on your fundamentals and the things that you want to get good at rather than beating that one guy that you have those tough rolls with. Like there's some utility to that, and it's worth learning how to counter that, and it's worth learning how to move away from their strengths. Right?
Absolutely.
But if that's all you're doing, then your jiu-jitsu is getting better, but not at a great rate.
Yeah, you got to learn to use those specific things your partners do well and their patterns to learn and notice bigger patterns.
The word of the day, patterns. Ah!
We need a talking lazy boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone needs a talking lazy boy.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, I'm on
The pocket, being aware of distance.
distance, changing your angles.
Be aware of what you're risking.
Yeah, calculated risk,
Patterns,
patterns.
floral patterns,
Mm-hmm.
stripe patterns, polka dot patterns.
Patterns moving in opposite directions.
These are key.
Yeah,
Your pattern moving in the opposite direction, my pattern,
it's true.
by definition.
Cool. So I think if I were to sum up, like, remember this, Marlon, right, is action's faster than reaction, and having a plan will put you at an advantage.
We'll give you a whole bunch of options for plans. Pick out one for the bottom, one for the top. If you want extra bonus points, come up with a flashy move to like break that pattern, so you're not quite so predictable, like a Professor's jump over pass. But from your game plan on the top to the bottom.
I think to pick where you're maybe weaker and go there first. If you're not super confident on your bottom escapes, try pulling guard. Go to the bottom first, and work those things while your mind is still fresh.
This is awesome for competitors, for good athletes, for people strong, young, aggressive, hungry. And then there's the other side where, like, if you're really struggling, if you're feeling beat down, if you're not having success, if you're not having fun, stick to those things that you do the best, right? And try to build from there, right? But only you can say which one you are, right? Where you are. And everyone will find themselves on both sides of that at points if you ever stick around long enough.
100%.
Yeah. Cool. I think that was a lot of good information. It's great to hang out with you again, Professor. This was fun. If you have comments, let us know, thoughts, questions. I'm sure there's a lot of things that could be clarified or changed. There's a lot more information that we could dive into on this very subject alone, right? Not even talking about competition or whatever. Don't forget to write the keyword.
And let us know how many different gummies we ate in this episode.
How many was it? Cool. Thanks for coming out. Have a great day. Break on 3. 1, 2, 3.